Action. Power supplies are the most unglamorous things in the guitar universe, but why do we keep on persevering with this cheap garbage when there's better options out there that are going to cure all the noisy crap that you've got going on in your rig? Ask me how I know. We're going to find out. What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to have a look at power supplies and how they can be the bane of your existence in the guitar universe. But if this sort of stuff is helpful, or you like it, or you think my accent's funny, whatever, just go hit like and subscribe. We just hit 500, so that's really, really awesome. So thanks to you guys for jumping on board. But without further waffle, let's just get straight into it. A bit of backstory. I was running these two power supplies on different boards at different times. One is a Joyo Power Supply 2. The other one's an Amoon PP1. So this one's 8 outputs. This one's got 10. 9 volt. There's a few switches on it to go to 12 and 18 and that sort of stuff. Really, really, really inexpensive kit. For the most part, I was using analog pedals going into the front end of a clean amp for gigs and that sort of stuff, and they didn't really pose too much of an issue. I didn't really notice a hell of a lot of noise going on with them. They played nice with, you know, like a Boss tuner or like a Hall of Fame, but they played nice with that and it was all good. But it wasn't until I started using the Tonex that I noticed when I was powering the Tonex up with these nuggets, there was a high-pitched whine being introduced to the noise, into the signal. And I didn't know if it was something to do with this, an inherent design flaw with the Tonex, or another pedal feeding noise into the Tonex, because the Tonex was pretty much always at the end of the chain. So I made the trek down to the guitar shop today. Riffs and Licks on the Gold Coast. If you're local to the area, they've got a shop in Brisbane as well. Can't fault them. Their service was awesome. We spent about an hour in there trying out a whole bunch of different power supplies, from like a one-spot thing for just the Tonex to see if that would eliminate the noise, to what I ended up actually buying, and I'll show you that in a second. So what we noticed was when we plugged in the Tonex by itself, no other pedals, into one of these, it sounded fine. As soon as you introduced a second pedal, no matter what it was, and it even did it with a Boss tuner, that high-pitched whine would be there. So what we did to troubleshoot it, we went through everything from a one-spot single power supply for only the Tonex. So everything else on the board would be running through this. The Tonex would be on the one spot. Noise was still there. We tried the one spot with a daisy chain powering all the pedals. It still had the noise in place as well. What we ended up trying next that seemed to fix the problem was a Fender Engine Room 5, but the thing is about yay thick, and for that little board that I run, it's a Pedal Train Nano Junior, so that the clearance underneath it's tiny. So then finally we came up with a solution that it is going to power the amount of pedals that are on that mini board at a profile low enough that it was going to fit underneath it, and it was the Strymon Ojai. Go figure. A shitty power supply playing with a whole bunch of digital and analog pedals is going to introduce noise. Who would have fucking thought? Which leads me to my next point. We spend all this money on gear, fancy guitars and amps and boutique pedals and all the rest of it, and we negate having a decent power supply to boot it all up. Now this stung. This was $270, $279 from where I got it from. Probably could have found it cheaper if I had it, like, looked around online. But like I said, these guys spent over an hour with me pulling the board apart, pulling stuff out, trying stuff out. So for the couple of dollars that it was more expensive than somewhere else that I could have found online, for the good service, I think was more than worth it, and supporting a local business was really, really good. So where these two differ, and I am not an electro engineer expert at all, but this is just what I had explained to me. This is one power brick with a whole bunch of outlets on it, and it's all in the same circuit basically. Whereas this, it's only got 5 outlets, but each of the 5 are isolated from each other as well. So there's no chance of feeding noise back through like the power supply and feeding it further down the chain, which was awesome. Funny thing is, when we had the cheaper power supply plugged in without even the whine, there was a noise floor issue. It was like noisy and sort of clicky and sounded gross. We plugged this thing in and we thought we'd plugged it in wrong, because it was dead silent. Had to go and get a guitar and plug it in and, you know, roll the volume up, strummed a chord, sound came out, and we're like, holy shit. It's not only fixed the whine issue, but it's reduced the noise floor and all like the digital crappy noisy stuff that was going on as well. The other cool thing about it that I checked before I bought it, because I wanted to make sure it was expandable. On the Nano Junior, I'm running 4 pedals. So on the bigger board I've got, it's a Pedal Train Junior. So it's basically the Nano Plus, but 2 rows instead of 1. So on that, I can usually fit about 10 individual stomp boxes. This thing only powers 5. If I wanted to have enough outlets on this to power the rest of them, I can buy a second unit, and it comes with the link adapter that you only have one IEC power plug that plugs into one of these units. Then you've got the link cable that goes to the second one, which powers that as well. So you don't need to have 2 power leads and that. So you can power your 10 pedals off one IEC plug. With 2 of these velcroed underneath your board, it weighs, I don't know, at most 150 grams. Like, it weighs absolutely nothing. It's tiny and it's skinny. So what I thought we might do is I've plugged the rig in with the old power supply, and then we're going to plug it in with the Ojai as well, and we're going to see the noise difference. But I wanted to do a test because the Hotone Ampero Stomp has an 800 milliamp draw, whereas these put out 500, and it still powered it. I don't know if the Ampero's overquoting how much it needs, or this thing is an absolute weapon and it puts out a bunch of stuff. And I also wanted to see if I could introduce noise into this signal by having one outlet going to a Tonex, another one to the Stomp, and then one going to a daisy chain powering 3 analog drive pedals. Alright, so the way we have this set up is I'm running my guitar into the Ampero Stomp. Out of the effects send, I run into MXR Rage In, full tone OCD, then a Joyo Dark Flame. So I've got a mix of like decent boutique-y sort of pedals, a cheapo knockoff, and then I've got the Ampero Stomp for something digital. This is only used for effects. So no amp sims, no drive. The drive's coming from the other pedals, the amp sim's coming from the Tonex. Which leads us to the output of the Ampero Stomp. Goes into the input of the Tonex. But for this instance, we're running straight from the Tonex into a Scarlett 404. So as you can see, none of the drive pedals are turned on at the moment. I've got a clean sound on the amp. So if we turn up the input gain on the interface, this is what we get with a clean amp. Obviously the gain's goosed right up and you never have it that loud anyway, but having it at a more conservative level, if I turn on the gain pedal, that's what we get as that baseline. OCD, quieter because quite like lower gain, and then the Rage In, you can't really hear it too much, but regardless, it's too noisy. Just for shits and gigs, we're going to have a look to see what happens when you plug your USB into it as well, because sometimes the USB is going to introduce a bunch of weird noise into it as well. So a little digital clip of when the USB was plugged in, but then again, if we throw a gain pedal on it, noise is still there. Tonex USB isn't plugged in, but this time we're plugged into this little nugget. If we come up to this door now, we have a look and see what's going on, and I press the dark flame again, you can see we've got a switch pop, but none of that high pitched noise is still going on. Obviously it's a high gain pedal, and we've got that high gain amp, or the pedal fizz, none of that high gain whine. So that's a really cool thing. What if we throw another pedal into it? Fizz, no whine. Third drive pedal. Lots of noise, but it's just noise from drive pedals. Alright, same deal again. So we've got the Ojai on 3 outputs. One is a Tonex, the other one's the Ampero Stomp. The other one is a daisy chain that is now feeding these 3 drive pedals. I'm expecting this to be noisier than before, and if it isn't, I'll be surprised. So let's go with the dirty one first. Alright, it's hard to actually find the buttons when you're looking at through a camera screen instead of, you know, in person. All 3 together. So they're the 2 waveforms. The one on the left is daisy chain, the one on the right isn't. It's not a great deal of difference, but if we just have one pedal on, and the noise is negligible at best, so that's surprising, which basically frees me up 2 more spots to run more pedals. Surprisingly though, this thing does take 800 milliamps to run on 9 volt. It's 500 milliamp outputs on these, and it still boots up. I haven't had an issue with anything sort of freezing or turning off. Alright, now we've also plugged the USB back into the Tonex just to see if there's any noise generated from that. It's plugged into a computer tower. Joyo Dark Flame, clicking back on. You can see the pedal clicks. A little bit of noise generated from the hiss off the high gain pedal, but none of that unwanted, whiny garbage noise anymore. You're expensive, but you work. But anyway, that was the Strymon Ojai power supply brick nugget of joy that has cured every fucking illness my rig has had. So that's a really, really good thing. Look, I do recommend it. It's an amazing bit of kit for what it is. It is expensive. You're going to pay, you know, a fair chunk of cash just to get something that lives underneath your board and just provides power. But it's bulletproof. They've got a good warranty on it. It is multi-voltage, so if I ever tour overseas or whatever, just get a new IEC cable for the local market or an adapter or something, and then, you know, away we go. There's no switches or anything on it, so it just does it automatically. So that's brilliant. It's expandable. You can throw, I think, 4 of these linked together to have 20 outlets if you want to have like a massive pedal board. I'm not saying this is the best power supply in the universe because I haven't tested them all. The one spot ones are apparently really good. The Fender engine room one was great, but it was really chunky. So if you've got like a low profile board, keep that in mind. The other one that always comes up on forums and that is the chocks. They didn't have the chocks in stock, so I couldn't test that. But getting the DC7 and then the 4, whatever it is, the expander, that seems like a really, really good bit of kit. But for now, I'm kind of invested in the Strymon ecosystem. I don't even have a Strymon pedal. I've got, you know, a Hotone pedal, Rev G4 copy, an OCD, and an MXR Ragin on that board at the moment. So there's nothing really too high end on it. And then I've got a fucking Strymon power thing underneath it. Jesus Christ. I need to reassess my rig. But then I'd have a noisy rig. But now I've got a shiny blue box with the Strymon logo on it. I can't even flex because it's going to live underneath my board, my deadly silent board, which is awesome. But, you know, is what it is. But I think that's enough bullshit out of me. Thanks heaps for watching. If you like this again, like and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next one because we're going to start doing some stuff a little bit different. I've been quiet of late. Work's been busy, you know, and doing heaps and heaps of like production and engineering. But I think, you know, I might start showing off a bit of the engineering, production, studio-y sort of stuff that I've been doing lately too, just to sort of, you know, make this a more holistic experience. But anyway, enough of that. See you guys later.